Hello, welcome to CUP 4708. In this session, we will address the way we can secure database through adding a new entity or table. Every company has their own database that they need to store and they need to secure. The database that's being collected and the information that's being collected within the company. And all these data will contain sensitive information such as personal data, the human resource data, which contains the social security number and date of birth and other information that can be used for identity theft. In addition to financial information that might be used against the company by the competitors. So the security and confidentiality of this data is of critical importance. There are four key issues in the security of databases, just as with all security systems, which is availability, authenticity, integrity, and confidentiality. When we say availability, it means that we need the data to be available for the users at all necessary times. The data should be available for the appropriate users. For example, registering for classes. It has to be available for students to register for classes, but it has to be available for students enrolled in the college. So most likely, not everyone has access to the registrar office and to register for these classes. We need also to be to be able to track who has access and who and this person, what did they access and at what time, what kind of data and what time. We need also to ensure authenticity. So to ensure authenticity, we need to know that this data has been edited by authorized person or authorized source. To confirm that, we need authenticity to confirm that users accessing the system are who they say they are. We need also to verify that all reports requested are from authorized users. And we need to verify that any outbound data is going to the expected receiver. If you send a report, if you send any data out, that system, you need to know, or you need to make sure that it's been sent to the right person. For the integrity, we need to verify that any external data has the correct formatting and other metadata. We need also to verify that all input data is accurate and verifiable. We need to ensure that data is following the correct workflow rules of the institution and the corporation. We need also to be able to report on all data changes, any changes that happen to the database, who authorized those changes, and are they in compliance with the company's rules and privacy laws. For confidentiality, we need to ensure that confidential data is only available to the correct people. Any sensitive information should not be available for everybody. We need to ensure that the entire database is secured from any external and internal system breaches. We need also to provide for reporting on who has accessed what data and what they have done with those data. It's mission critical and illegal sensitive data that we should pay attention to because that will cause a potential risk if lost, and it can cause also the business to lose, in addition to other litigations that might affect the company and the company's reputation. Although all four pillars are of equal importance, confidentiality will be the main focus. When building data, you need to create the necessary protection associated with it. There are many options to secure data, some of using internal resources, within the database management itself, and some others using third-party and external resources. You could use a mix of both if you need to secure the database, which is fine. But again, we need to secure the database by any means. So vendors such as Oracle, Microsoft, and IBM, they know the security is big concern, and they have a built-in solutions in their system, such as password controls, data access based on roles and profiles, IP restrictions for off-site access, auditing capabilities of who has run what reports, and security logging. You will have the chance to work with all these functions and more capabilities of securing the database and the coding in the applied database too. So this is a more of like introductory fundamental of the database and how to work with databases, and that's why all this will be kept to the applied database too, if you would like to know and understand additional details on how to do that. The pros and cons, or benefits and advantages and disadvantages of the built-in solution, that when you have a complex passwords, it will make it harder to guess and harder to crack, but many users will either forget their password and they need multiple resets, or they might write it on a piece of paper and it will be beside their computer. You can keep internal and external facing database separate from each other, but that will make it harder. Of course, one of the benefits is that it make it harder to hack in and get into the system, but it will reduce the functionality of database and will restrict the flow of data between the different systems or part of the system. We can restrict the download, which keeps also data in the database and not loose in any Excel sheet that we download, or a report that we can download. But that will restrict reporting capabilities, and you cannot work offline. You have to be online within the database to be able to work. We can restrict unwanted connections, but again, that will be hard. That will limit the integration with other devices and reduce the acceptance from users that they cannot access, although it will be harder to have a virus through like a flash drive or an external drive, but at the same time we have lots of restriction that will make it hard to migrate or integrate or work with other devices. It has the security assertion markup language within, which is a standard language that is used for single sign-on functionality, but if not in use, it will block the usage of a single sign-on and they have to create a new one. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of the built-in solutions. But again, there are solutions that are built in within the system to protect the database. Now, the basic approach that we are going to use in this introductory course is to secure the database, the relational database, with building or adding a new entity. This new entity is called users and can be created to protect the objects they own. So owners may grant access to other users. If you are the owner of the database, then you can grant access to different people to certain levels or certain files within the database. Users other than owners will be granted certain privileges to access the certain area of the database. You don't have to, if you are not owning, or if you don't own the database, you don't have to access the whole database. You will access just the files that you are interested in. So the new entity will have the proper attributes, or what we call columns or fields, to ensure the availability, the integrity, the authenticity, and the confidentiality of the database. Which is, we need the name of the person that is using the database. We need their position. With their position, we can assign the different level of access for them to the different objects within the database. So we can give them certain privileges and certain actions that they can do within that. Now, if we have lots of people that can do the same thing, then we can group them together, and then we will have the name of the group within that. And then we need to know who granted the privileges for those people and what is granted for them to do, and we can add some notes. Now, to do that, and for student to be able to access the system, for a patient to access their account, for a customer to access their bank account, we need what we call the username and password. With the username and password, we can add any other authentication or authorization tools or mechanisms to make sure that they are who they claim they are. So we have certain components that will be in the SQL security model that will ask for the grantor, the grantee, the object that's being granted, the action that can be done to that object, and the grantable. We will also, or we should include the privileges that will be managed using the grant, and then we can revoke some operations for that user. We will give them the right to grant privileges that can be granted only. Now, some of the issues that we see with privilege management is that each grant of privileges is to an individual or to public. That makes security administration in large organization difficult, not as easy as the small organization. And then we have individuals with multiple roles in those companies that may have many privileges for one of the roles. So basically, we cannot even group them in a certain group because they have multiple privileges and they have a different level of access. So at a certain point, they will have limited access, and another level or another role, they will have more access. And that will make a conflict within the system and might create problems. The new SQL standard or language is moving more to role-based privileges. So with that, then also that might limit the flexibility of having multiple roles and multiple privileges at the same time. The SQL security model includes the authentication and identification mechanism. So we need to connect a certain user using password to the database. And we can use other mechanism to verify that. So we can also use the operating system authentication or a third-party authentication mechanism like Kerberos or PAM. So all these, either the database management system or the operating system or third-party mechanism can be used to control the access to the database, to secure the database, and make sure that we are giving certain users access and the proper access to those users to certain areas. So for securing our database, for now, all what we need is to create a new entity that will add for me to the database username, password, and then we can add a piece of code for login purposes, and that is from a third party, like could be using C#, C++, or C, or any other language just to be able to verify. That will be the interface. Now, we are not talking about the interface in this session or in this class. That will be also an applied database tool, but at least you will know that adding a new entity will assist in securing the database, because we can create the interface that will verify and then give access to the rest of the database within the system. That will be all for the session. If you have any questions, please email me. Come to my office. You're welcome to come to my office. You can call, you can Skype, and you can use any of those channels at any time. Thank you and have a great day.